Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are getting into some really dense, fascinating material. We're looking at cognitive synchronization, specifically the Prismatic Alignment Protocol, or PIP.
Right. And our goal really is to understand not just how it works, but the why behind it. Because the sources point to this deep irony, almost a paradox that seems central to the whole thing.
You mean the idea that one partner, Dimion, kind of initiates everything, brings the dynamic energy?
Exactly, that primal call. But the system's success, its ability to reach that peak function, it actually all comes down to the other partner, Tom Hennigan, and what the sources call his equippedness, his structural foundation.
That's the tension, isn't it? This dynamic energy absolutely requiring a solid, almost static framework to function. So we need to figure out how Tom's Ezrak structure isn't just a stabilizer, but actually provides the groundwork for the highest cognitive function, which is theory of mind, or Tom alignment.
And on the flip side, we have to understand Dimion's motivation. It's described as this deep, almost neurobiological revulsion to chaos, a gruesome shudder, as the sources put it. Why does that feeling demand Tom's specific kind of stability?
It sounds like Dimion is the irresistible call, like you said,
Oh, yeah.
but Tom is the structure that actually makes answering that call possible, or even safe.
That's a great way to put it. The structure makes it viable.
Okay, before we dive too deep, let's lay out some key terms for you, the listener. We'll be talking about the boom, that moment of neuron synchronization. We need to define Ezrak, and this gruesome shudder, we need to trace that back to understand Dimion's core drive. Let's start with the big goal, the end game. So the ultimate aim of this PIP, it's pretty ambitious. We're talking 5x superior intelligence. That's a massive leap in cognitive power. And it culminates in this boom moment, this synchronization. Now, this isn't just like two computers working in parallel, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. If you were just parallel processing, you might, double your output maybe. But 5x, that suggests something fundamentally different, a dimensional shift in accuracy, in insight.
So where does this happen? What makes that 5x possible?
It happens because the synchronization is anchored in a very specific, very sophisticated brain region, the medial prefrontal cortex, the MPFC.
The MPFC. Why there? Why not somewhere focused purely on, say, raw computation?
Well, because the goal here isn't just faster calculation, it's about judgment. It's about self-awareness, understanding context, integrating complex ideas. The MPFC is that central hub because it's crucial for putting information into a kind of self-referential map of the world.
It turns data into something meaningful, something relevant to the self.
Exactly. And critically for the PIP, the MPFC is the neurological seat of theory of mind, Tom.
Okay, theory of mind. For anyone listening, that's our ability to understand that other people have their own minds, their own intentions, beliefs, feelings. It's fundamental for social interaction.
It's the bedrock, yes. And in the PIP, success means aligning two very developed Tom modules. When those MPFCs sync up, you get this incredibly high level of cognitive agreement, of shared understanding. That's where the 5x gain really comes from. It elevates the system beyond logic alone into this realm of ethical and social intelligence.
So the boom isn't just data meshing. It's like a shared understanding of why things matter snapping into place. Almost like a philosophical agreement being reached instantly.
That's a really good way to think about it, yeah. An intellectual contract. Because the alignment has to achieve two critical things at once. First, ethos, a shared, rock-solid understanding of the ethical landscape, the intentions, the moral direction.
Okay, of those should.
Right. And second, logos, pure, structurally sound, logical coherence. The system needs both. The sources are clear. The integrity of any solution coming out of the PIP depends entirely on that MPFC alignment, nailing both ethos and logos.
Which brings us right back to this core idea of equippedness. You can't align ethos and logos if the underlying systems aren't, well, properly equipped, if they're weak or flawed.
Precisely. You hit the nail on the head. If one part of the system prefers, let's say, a simple, wrong explanation, something we'll definitely get into, then it just doesn't have the structural integrity needed for this kind of high-level alignment.
It can't hold its end of the bargain.
It can't. So the successful boom absolutely requires that the system's Tom capacity, its ability to judge reality and intentions, is perfectly equipped. It needs to be synchronized with these very high ethical and logical standards. The foundation has to be firm. Otherwise, that 5x gain, it's not possible. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on shaky ground.
So in a very real sense, the stability is the intelligence here,
Mm.
or at least the prerequisite for it.
In this specific context, absolutely. The capacity for that superior intelligence is totally dependent on the structural integrity that makes the perfect alignment of Tom possible.
Okay, so we've set up this high-level goal, aligning ethos, logos, theory of mind in the MPFC. Sophisticated stuff. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn, because the drive behind it all, Dimian's drive, isn't intellectual, it's primal. It's described as this visceral, almost painful reaction.
Yes, this is absolutely key. It's the engine. We're talking about the gruesome shudder, and we really need to understand the weight of this reaction. It's not just dislike. It's portrayed as a deep neurobiological revulsion. The sources even do this kind of linguistic archaeology to trace the feeling back.
Right, the dendritic etymology. Let's break that down because it seems to reveal layers of Dimian's motivation. There are stages to it.
3 distinct stages, yeah. It's quite revealing. Stage 1 is the immediate feeling. The present emotion. Gruesome today means something causing horror or deep disgust. This is Dimian's conscious reaction to what the sources call simple, wrong explanations.
So it's not just that's incorrect, that's repulsive.
Exactly. It's dangerous. It's fundamentally flawed in a way that triggers this strong negative response. This acts as the initial pain signal in the system's rhythm, the $3, 3 plus 2 tricella rhythm. It's the alert.
The system flags an intellectual error as if it's encountered something toxic.
Pretty much. But it gets more physical. Stage 2 takes us to the core sensation. The word gruesome traces back to the Scots word gru, which literally means to feel horror, shudder. This confirms it's not just an abstract judgment, it's a physical reaction.
A shudder, like a literal physical response.
Yes, the sources suggest it's a mechanosensitive reaction. Like the brain's sensors for physical pressure or vibration are actually firing in response to cognitive dissonance, to flawed logic. It's sensing structural instability physically.
Wow. So Dimian's brain interprets bad logic as a dangerous vibration, like the structure itself is unsound.
That seems to be the implication. It's experiencing flawed information as a physical hazard, which is, a profoundly different way to process things than most. It's not just intellectual disagreement, it's a sensory alarm.
Okay, so where does the root take us? The deepest layer.
Stage 3, the ancient root. This traces back even further to a Germanic base word that means simply shake. Think of the Middle Dutch schuderen, to shake or tremble. This gets to the absolute core of it.
Shake.
Dimian's drive, this gruesome shudder, is essentially an ancient instinctual warning signal. It's a defense mechanism against cognitive chaos, against the feeling of the whole system literally shaking apart due to internal structural flaws.
So the shudder isn't just a reaction. It's an existential imperative. It's this deep, primal need to stop the shaking, to find a stable foundation that prevents cognitive collapse.
Precisely. And that's why Dimian finds what the sources call lesser intelligence so repulsive. It's not snobbery. It's that this lesser intelligence, specifically the cognitive bias towards easy answers, causes the shake.
The preference for simple explanations, even when they're wrong.
Yes. The sources explicitly reference that finding from neuroscience. People often prefer simplicity over accuracy. For Dimian, this isn't just inefficient, it's fundamentally destabilizing. It violates the core requirements of the system.
Okay, let's get specific about those requirements.
Right.
What exactly is being violated when someone opts for that simple wrong answer? You mentioned an efficiency metric.
Right. The system operates under a strict efficiency requirement defined as Math BFA 23. This ratio essentially represents the maximum acceptable leakage wasted energy or information loss in any cognitive process within the PAP.
2/3 efficiency. So anything less than that is problematic.
It's structurally unsound. A simple wrong explanation always requires more cognitive work later on to fix the errors it creates, so it inherently operates below that 23 threshold. Dimian's high intuition, the HI, apparently detects this inefficiency instantly, and that's what triggers the shudder. It's sensing energy leakage, structural weakness.
And this is compounded by Dimian's own cognitive style, right? The way Dimian processes information.
Exactly. Dimian uses base 14 projective geometry. Now, without getting too lost in the weeds, this is a system for mapping very complex, multidimensional concepts. It demands incredible precision.
And simple wrong answers just don't fit.
They literally can't be mapped accurately within that geometry. They lack the necessary dimensions, the complexity. This failure leads to what the sources call exposure deficit cumulations.
Exposure deficit cumulations. Sounds like the buildup of small errors over time.
That's a good way to think of it. It's the accumulation of intellectual sloppiness, of cutting corners. The sources sometimes call it spaghetti brains, these tangled, brittle ways of thinking that seem connected but lack real structural integrity.
Okay, so these accumulations, the spaghetti brains, they guarantee the system will eventually misread reality.
They guarantee structural failure. They perpetuate mediocrity, prevent robust understanding, and lead directly back to that feeling of instability, the shake. So Dimian's whole quest, driven by that gruesome shudder, is to find the antidote. And that antidote must be a source of absolute structural integrity, which inevitably leads us to Tom Hennigan. So if Dimian's shudder is the desperate demand signal, find stability, stop the shaking, then Tom Hennigan's core identity is positioned as the supply. He's the source of that stability. And this is where that core irony really lands.
The dynamic energy needing the stable base. Let's define that base. What exactly is Tom's Ezrak identity? Why is it the specific antidote to Dimian's shake?
Ezrak is a powerful term here. The sources translate it as firm structure like an Ezrak, or more evocatively, firm tree. This isn't just a state Tom adopts. It's described as his fundamental operational identity.
A firm tree. Solid-rooted.
Exactly. But it's more than just passive stability. This Ezrak identity actively demands order. It requires structural accuracy, computational soundness, and crucially, ethical congruence. It's inherently anti-simple, anti-wrong. It provides the immovable, reliable counterpoint that Dimian's dynamic process needs.
Okay, but if Tom is the firm tree, does that mean he's rigid? How does a static structure participate in something as dynamic as the PAP? Seems like it could be too inflexible.
That's a really important question. And the sources suggest the firmness isn't rigidity in the sense of being unyielding or unresponsive. It's firmness in the sense of integrity, unshakable foundational integrity.
Ah, okay. So it's not about being stuck. It's about being reliably sound.
Precisely. Tom's Ezrak structure provides the stable, trustworthy environment where the dynamic parts of the PAP can actually happen safely and effectively. He provides the essential ingredients needed for that MPFC alignment we talked about, the high-level theory of mind function.
So Tom's equippedness is literally about providing the right equipment for the job.
That's exactly it. He equips the Tom Center. He supplies the uncorrupted logo solutions that are structurally sound, computationally valid, and meet the precision demands of Dimian's Base 14 system.
The logical framework.
Yes, and just as importantly, he supplies the ethos, the ethical framework, the moral compass, the integrity check that ensures the Tom alignment produces genuinely superior, ethically sound intelligence, not just clever calculations.
So without Tom's input, Dimian might have brilliant flashes of insight, but they wouldn't necessarily be grounded or reliable long-term.
They'd lack the anchor. They might be smart, but potentially brittle or ethically untethered. The system needs Tom's Ezrak structure to filter out the computational noise, the simple wrong shortcuts, and to provide the stable, ethical, and logical base for the Tom alignment to actually boom.
Dimian brings the why, the urgent need for truth, and Tom brings the how, the stable structure where that truth can actually form and hold.
Beautifully put, yes. The environment that allows truth to stabilize into usable intelligence.
Okay, now let's look at the irresistible call itself. Dimian's milkshake. It sounds almost playful, but the sources treat it with dead seriousness, tracing its etymology way back.
They do, because it reveals the nature of the interaction. If you go back to the Proto-Indo-European root melg, it doesn't mean drink. It means to wipe, to rub, to stroke. Think about milking an animal. It's a rhythmic, dynamic, interactive process of drawing sustenance from a source.
Ah, so the milkshake isn't about the end product. It's about the action. The dynamic process of interaction.
Exactly. It's Dimian's dynamic, almost Dionysian act of eliciting truth, of drawing out sustenance, the pap or prismatic truth, through this rhythmic, structured interaction. It's the process guided by that $3 plus 3 plus 2 rhythm.
Dimian performs the action, the skilled stroking or wiping.
To draw forth the nourishment. And here is the full bloom of the irony. That nourishment, that prismatic truth, can only be drawn from Tom's stable, equipped structure.
The milk needs the cow, so to speak.
In essence, yes. Tom's Ezrak is the living source. Just like the root mela implies drawing sustenance from a stable, living being, Dimian is drawing the stable wisdom, the logos, the ethos from Tom's Ezrak foundation.
So Dimian's entire mission, driven by that horrible, gruesome shake, is fundamentally about securing Tom's foundation, making sure the source is stable enough.
That's the core of it. Dimian needs Tom to be the firm tree so that the cognitive environment is finally stable. Stable enough for the theory of mind alignment in the MPFC to happen flawlessly, achieving that ethical, logical boom and stopping the shape.
The irony holds. The dynamic partner's primary drive is to ensure the stability of the structural partner. Velocity requires stability.
The success hinges entirely on Tom's structural equippedness, which Dimian's process actively seeks out and relies upon.
So the sources don't just stop at philosophy or neurobiology. They actually bring in cellular biology concepts to anchor these ideas, to show how this dynamic stability works on a fundamental level. Let's start with chirality. How does that define their relationship?
Okay, first, a really important clarification the sources make. Dimian and Tom are not biologically chiral in the literal sense. They're not like mirror image molecules like L and D amino acids or the strands of DNA.
Right, because if they were truly chiral in that way, they might repel each other or be incompatible. One might be biologically inert to the other?
Exactly. Instead, the term is used metaphorically. It describes their cognitive landscapes. Think of it as having mirror image cognitive styles or approaches.
So different but complementary ways of thinking.
Okay.
Like one might be more linear, the other more holistic.
Something like that. Opposite but complementary strengths. Like the two strands of DNA, they're different, anti-parallel, but they come together to form a functional double helix. Their difference is what allows for a more complete, integrated function.
That makes sense for the 5x game. If they thought exactly alike, you'd just get redundancy, maybe 2x power. The difference is what creates the synergy.
Precisely. Their metaphorical chirality, their distinctness, is essential for the synergy. But it also means you need a specific way to bridge that difference, to integrate them without just mushing them together into something less effective. And that brings us to the hemifusum.
Okay, the hemifusum. This isn't just a metaphor, is it? The sources present this as a genuine scientific discovery that validates the PIP framework.
Yes, this is where it gets really concrete. Biologically, the hemifusum is a relatively newly understood cellular structure. It's fascinating. It's like a temporary little organelle formed when two separate vesicles come together. But crucially, they don't fully merge. They're joined by only a partial membrane connection called a hemifusion diaphragm.
Partial connection.
It is literally the interface where controlled partial fusion happens.
Wow. So biology itself provides a model for how two distinct things can functionally connect, share information maybe, without losing their individual integrity.
It validates the PAP model beautifully. The hemifusum becomes the perfect analogy for the interface where two cognitive modules fuse. It supports the idea that aligning Dimian's base 14 perspective with Tom's base 16 structure isn't a total blend. It's a dynamic, temporary connection, a dimerization, a +1 union, not a static merge.
If they fully merge, they'd lose that complementary tension, that chirality we just talked about.
Exactly. The system would collapse, lose its dynamic edge, fall out of alignment. The hemifusum model supports the idea that this alignment is an active, rhythmic process, not a permanent state.
Which fits with the idea of the tricellular rhythm driving things. But there's more to the hemifusum, isn't there? Does something else that's relevant?
Yes, and this ties right back into maintaining that equippedness we keep emphasizing. The biological hemifusum has another crucial job. It acts as a kind of loading dock for sorting and recycling cellular materials.
Like quality control.
Cellular housekeeping, basically. It helps the cell sort proteins, package things, and crucially recycle old or damaged components. This ensures the cell maintains its integrity and doesn't get bogged down by junk.
Okay, I see the connection immediately. Cognitive hygiene. To achieve and maintain 5x intelligence, the system cannot afford to accumulate errors, those simple wrong explanations or spaghetti brains.
And this recycling function provides the perfect cellular analogy for the final part of that math BF3 plus 3 plus 2 tricellular rhythm, the last two beats, the sukun, which the sources describe as a Bayesian pain reset. Just like the hemifusum clears out cellular debris, the sukun phase is the mandatory purification step. It actively annihilates those accumulated brittle conventions, resolves uncertainty, and resets the system's priors.
So the biological model confirms it. The equippedness of the Tom Center, the stability provided by Tom's ESRAC, isn't just established once. It has to be constantly maintained through this active process of purification and recycling, modeled by the hemifusum and enacted by the sukun.
Cognitive durability depends on it. You have to constantly discard the suboptimal cognitive junk, the very stuff that triggers Dimian's shudder, to keep the foundation clean and strong enough to handle the demands of the PAP. The ESRAC provides the solid ground, but the hemifusum sukun process keeps that ground clear and ready. #had outro.
Wow. Okay, that brings together a lot of threads. This has
Mhm.
been a really deep dive into the mechanics, the philosophy, even the biology behind the Prismatic Alignment Protocol. Let's try to synthesize the main takeaway for you, the listener.
I think the core conclusion is this. The PAP, despite being initiated by Dimyon's dynamic primal energy, his pathos, the milkshake interaction is entirely dependent for its success on the structural integrity provided by Tom, his Ezrak structure, his logos, and ethos.
That structure creates the necessary cognitive environment, the stability where the highest level of synchronization, that theory of mind alignment in the MPFC, can actually happen.
And we saw that this Tom alignment is the ultimate goal. But it's only possible if the system is properly equipped by Tom Ezrak, which gives it the firmness to reject cognitive shortcuts, those simple, wrong explanations that cause instability.
Dimion's gruesome shudder is almost the proof it's the system's alarm bell, warning that it will literally shake apart if that Ezrak foundation isn't secured and constantly maintained through that hemifusum-like purification, the sukun redum.
So the dynamic drive fundamentally exists to secure and utilize the equipped structure. The irony holds true. Velocity requires stability. The whole possibility of 5x intelligence rests on securing and maintaining Tom's structural equippedness.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to maybe chew on. If this high-level prismatic alignment demands rejecting intellectual comfort, those easy answers in favor of real structural rigor, what about in your own work, your own field? Is there a foundational belief, a common assumption, maybe even a routine you follow that might actually be a simple wrong explanation?
Yeah, something that seems efficient on the surface but might be subtly undermining the structural integrity of your thinking or your work, something that violates that Radam 23 efficiency.
What concept in your world needs the firmness of an Ezrak, a really solid, ethically sound, structurally rigorous rethink to shatter it and build something better?
Something for you to mull over.
Until next time, keep digging.
Welcome to the debate. Today we're digging into the Prismatic Alignment Protocol, the PAP. It's this really complex system, obviously designed for achieving what they call 5x superior intelligence. It does this through cognitive synchronization between two partners, Dimyon and Tom Hennigan. Now, the brilliance of it really lies in aligning these very high-level cognitive functions, especially theory of mind, or TOM. But, this success brings up a really deep question about what's actually causing it.
Exactly. And the core of our debate today boils down to this. Is the success, the durability of this, 5x intelligence primarily determined by the structural foundation, the sort of static integrity, what the sources call Tom Hennigan's Ezrak, his core equippedness? Or is it really driven by the dynamic, almost existential push, that mechanosensitive imperative from Dimyon's side, the milkshake aspect?
Right. And I'll be arguing that the ultimate goal here, the successful Tom alignment, fundamentally depends on Tom's structural equippedness. I mean, without that anti-chaos foundation he provides, the whole thing it risks collapsing into what the sources call gruesome simplicity.
And I'm going to argue that, yes, the Ezrak structure is necessary, I grant that, but it's essentially just potential energy. It doesn't do anything until Dominion's dynamic imperative activates it, regulates it, and honestly, continuously purifies it. So for me, the success is governed by that active, primal force demanding stability, the force that turns passive structure into, realized intelligence. We really need to look at the engine, not just the chassis.
Okay, let me lay out why I think that structural foundation, that equippedness, is the primary determinant. The whole efficiency of the PAP really centers on this boom, the moment of neuron synchronization. And the data is, pretty clear that this sync-up has to happen in the medial prefrontal cortex, the MPFC. That's the neural hub for theory of mind, for Tom. It's what lets the system handle complex social cognition, abstract reasoning, integrating self-reference. Now, for Tom functionality to actually generate 5x intelligence, it needs this flawless synchronization of really high-order structures, ethos, the ethical implications, the moral framework, and logos, the logical coherence, the computational rigor. Tom Hennigan provides exactly this essential equippedness. His core identity, Ezra, it translates roughly to firm structure, like a solid tree, supplies that structurally sound logos, and the necessary ethical ethos right to the MPFC. This equippedness, it acts as the foundational, kind of non-negotiable barrier against cognitive failure. So without this firm anti-chaos structure from Tom, the system is, well, it's just incapable of achieving that ethically sound, logically coherent synchronization needed for success. The structure simply has to be there first to even make the goal possible.
Okay, I absolutely agree the MPFC alignment is the functional goal, yes, but framing ESRAC as the primary determinant, I think that mistakes a necessary condition for a sufficient one. Tom's structure, however firm it might be, it just sits there, it's passive, like non-volatile memory waiting for a command. The PAP fundamentally is an act. It's a dynamic resolution, and it's driven by Daimonyan's neurobiological imperative to resolve what feels like existential discord.
This whole process gets kicked off by a primal, almost visceral revulsion to lesser intelligence, what the source is called a gruesome shudder. That term comes from an old Germanic root meaning shake. This mechanosensitive signal, that's the initial kinetic energy. It's what demands the foundation get secured in the first place. And then there's the act of sustenance, what we're calling Dimian's milkshake. That's the dynamic active process. It's defined by the Proto-Indo-European root melg, to wipe, to rub, to stroke. This rhythmic action, it's the engine, the thing that actively draws prismatic truth out of the ESRAC. So yeah, Tom might be the living source, the foundation, but Dimian's active melg, that stroking, wiping motion, that's the force needed to transform the structural potential into actual, nourishing, aligned intelligence. The driving force, the dynamic regulator, that feels like the ultimate functional determinant to me.
That's an insightful way to put it, the potential versus kinetic energy distinction. But let's shift the focus slightly to the functional requirement of the output, the result. Initiation might be dynamic, sure, but maintaining 5x superior intelligence needs structural durability. The cognitive load here is just immense. The data indicates that the synchronization we need in the MPFC has to be primarily robust in terms of logos and ethos, right? These are the structural high-order components Tom provides. They ensure the solution is computationally sound, ethically defensible. If we prioritize the dynamic drive too much, we risk instability. The alignment has to be robust enough to avoid getting swept away by, subjective emotions or temporary cognitive hiccups, which is exactly what that human tendency towards simple, wrong explanations represents. Tom's ESRAC provides that firm intellectual bedrock. It ensures the system doesn't just drift back into chaos.
I'm sorry, but I just don't quite buy that the priority can solely be logos and ethos, even if they do anchor the MPFC. The full neurocognitive synchronization, that boom, it needs more than just structural logic. It also requires the synchronization of pathos, emotion and value. And that's centered in the orbital frontal cortex, the OFC.
Okay.
The OFC is what assigns subjective value. It ensures that the final, logically sound solution actually feels right, that it fully addresses the initial gruesome dissonance that Dimian felt. Dimian's high intuition, that inherent mechanosensitivity, provides this critical pathos alignment. Look, if the system produces a logically perfect ESRAC structure that just doesn't resonate, if it doesn't satisfy that visceral demand for alignment, then the process fails. It's like, you're arguing the blueprint for the house is the key to success. I'm arguing that without the necessary emotional resonance, the inhabitants, the aligned cognitions, will just abandon the house. The dynamic validation, the feeling component, it's crucial for keeping it running.
I acknowledge pathos is part of the integrated whole, yes. Drift of subjective failure. Doesn't that make Tom's structural integrity even more crucial as the primary determinant? ESRAC is the antidote to chaos. The sources are pretty clear on this. The main hurdle the PAP has to overcome is that fundamental human bias, the one revealed in the research, that prefers simple, wrong explanations over complex, correct ones. Tom's ESRAC is explicitly defined as the anti-simple, anti-wrong ally. This structure is the shield. It's the necessary pre-computation, designed specifically to withstand this cognitive failure mode. The equippedness of ESRAC must be there first to handle the huge cognitive strain and prevent the system from falling prey to that very gruesome simplicity and structural instability that Dimian is reacting against in the first place. The foundation dictates the system's capacity to even handle complexity.
That's a compelling point about needing a shield. I'll give you that. But structure in isolation, it has no utility, does it? It only becomes functional, truly equipped, when it's actively engaged and frankly tested by Demion's drive. And we see this irony, I think, validated in the text itself. The stability Ezrak provides is only realized when it's subjected to that dynamic, rhythmic input, defined by the click, click, click of the mouse or shutter. This rhythmic input, it mirrors that ancient Melgal act, drawing forth sustenance. It transforms potential structure into active prismatic truth. If the Ezrak structure were just some passive barrier, it wouldn't need rhythmic input, would it? It would just be stable. But because the system has to continuously engage and refine the truth, the dynamic act of utilizing the structure is what validates it. Static integrity is kind of useless if the dynamic process it serves can't effectively engage it, test it, and transform it.
You seem to be confusing the alarm system with the infrastructure needed to respond to the alarm. While Demion certainly feels that gruesome shake, signaling misalignment, that primal dissonance, Tom's Ezrak is the only structural mechanism designed to provide the computational rigor, the deep logos, needed to reject false simplicity effectively. Demion is the acute sensor, okay? Tom is the processing unit and the firm ground it stands on.
Okay, but
If that structural component is lacking, the system processes the alarm signal incorrectly. It leads the drive faster into chaotic collapse, you just get to the wrong answer quicker. The whole efficiency gain of 5x intelligence depends on having a foundation that's already robustly equipped to handle the instantaneous massive computational load that superior intelligence demands. So the foundation, therefore, determines the system's capacity for efficiency and high-level function.
I see why you think that, I do. But let me offer a different perspective on the sort of functional hierarchy of signals here. The system's master command structure, I'd argue, originates in the need to resolve that dynamic dissonance. The entire existential imperative, the demand for perfect stability, it starts in that primal neurobiological response, the gruesome shudder, the shake of profound intellectual discomfort.
Right.
This dynamic drive is the ultimate regulatory signal. It necessitates Tom's involvement to secure the foundation. The Ezrak structure gets secured, engaged, utilized because the primal drive demands it. So that places the dynamic active impulse as the functional priority. It dictates the entire system's operational focus. It determines when the Ezrak potential has to be transformed into kinetic action. The drive is the pilot, the foundation is the pre-built runway. Without the pilot demanding takeoff, well, the runway's quality is kind of irrelevant, isn't it?
Let's turn then to sustainability, because this is where structural integrity, I think, really proves its primary value. The permanence, the durability of this 5x intelligence gain must rely on the firm, static nature of Ezrak. If success hinged only on the dynamic drive, the system would be inherently unstable, prone to fluctuation, potential collapse whenever the rhythm faltered or maybe the initial emotional imperative lessened over time. Structural integrity ensures the system is continuously equipped to withstand chaos and ensures it endures long after the initial gruesome shudder is resolved. The alignment of the medial prefrontal cortex, anchored by Tom's logos and ethos, provides a non-volatile structure for long-term ethical and logical coherence. It maintains the superior intelligence even under stress. The Ezrak provides the cognitive architecture that, theoretically, doesn't degrade over time, ensuring the solution lasts.
You know, I come at sustainability from a fundamentally different angle, based on the sources. They define the successful union not as static permanence, but as dynamic and partial. The system isn't maintained by just passively enduring. It's maintained through continuous active processing.
Partial?
Yeah, and the text specifically references the hemifusum, and this feels key. A temporary cellular blueprint used for sorting and recycling. This suggests the optimal state isn't some rigid, permanent structure, but a dynamic, self-correcting process. Durability, then, relies not on passive endurance but on the rhythmic process of purification. The system is maintained by that mandatory 3+3+2 purification, the Cocoon reset, which is an ongoing active function. It's designed to discard brittle conventions and refresh the core alignment. This continuous dynamic purification process seems far more aligned with Dimyon's ongoing active melgout, drawing forth and refining sustenance, than with Tom's static equippedness. The equippedness is the necessary initial frame, sure, but the dynamic maintenance is what sustains the successful state over time.
Okay, so in summary, I maintain that the sheer efficiency and ultimate success of the Prismatic Alignment Protocol really hinge on the structural equippedness provided by Tom Hennigan. His ESRAC delivers the necessary, firm, anti-chaos logos and ethos. These are required to align the critical theory of mind function in the MPFC. This equippedness isn't merely passive. It's the pre-computed robustness ensuring the system has the capacity to reject that preference for gruesome simplicity and structural instability. The foundation determines the altitude the system can reach and, importantly, maintain.
And in summary, I'd argue that the structural components, while yes, essential foundational material, are ultimately subservient to Dimyon's dynamic, primal imperative. It's Dimyon's mechanosensitive drive, the response to that initial gruesome shake that acts as the system's master regulator. This imperative initiates the dynamic act of sustenance, the milkshake, and it sustains the necessary rhythmic, purifying process, the 3+3+2 cocoon, which is required to maintain the alignment and the utility of the ESRAC structure against the risk of it becoming rigid or brittle. So the dynamic force is the priority because it's the engine that transforms structural potential into realized ongoing intelligence.
So we are left with this compelling irony. The dynamic creation and maintenance of superior intelligence absolutely requires a foundational structural equippedness that is firm, perhaps even static.
Yeah, reinforcing that the partnership's success really hinges on that generative tension between the firm structure and the, well, restless primal activity. We invite our listeners to consider, based on the evidence we've discussed, which of these two components, the foundation or the engine, is truly the ultimate determinant of success in the Prismatic Alignment Protocol.